Hello, welcome to me doing another Spelunky Daily Challenge for today, the 12th of October. No one's done one yet, which is funny because it's now getting on for the evening, but there you go. Before I start anything else, as you might have seen from the title, there is a minor trigger warning on this video because a serious topic is going to come up. I don't know if a trigger warning is or how necessary it is, but I think it's very sensible to put one on just in case. One of the topics that is going to be touched on a little is child abuse, which is obviously not at all a remotely pleasant topic, but the context of this wider video I think is quite positive, but because that's going to come up, I think it's only fair to put that trigger warning on now. So just so you are aware, here's how I did yesterday. And the important thing is obviously I came above everyone else I know, and all other considerations are invalid. Today's subject, Daily Challenge, there we go. Today's topic is the comedian Billy Connolly. And you might have originally thought that there's a warning on this because of the subjects of, I don't know, his comedy. But that's not quite the case. We'll come to that in a moment, hopefully. I don't know how much you know about Billy Connolly. You probably are aware that he is a quite outspoken Scottish comedian who is, hooray, a dog, not as young as he used to be. He's of the generation of my parents, born in the mid-1940s. But he's, you may not be so aware that as well as being a comedian, he's also an actor. He's been an actor of stage and screen, and he's also actually really quite an accomplished folk musician, and he's done a few other things in his life that are rather interesting, and hopefully if I live long enough to if I live long enough to properly get into this topic, I might be able to get across how interesting a person he is and why I've chosen him for this daily challenge subject. This batch of 10, as you might well know, are all subjects that are a bit more important to me, or that I think are a bit more, I suppose, influential in my life in some way. And maybe, oh, I hope that doesn't hit a dog. It doesn't. Good. Maybe Billy Connolly surprises you, and perhaps that doesn't seem to you like someone who I would consider influential. And I suppose it kind of surprises me a bit as well. But, oops, oh dear, well, that made getting the dog, that was silly. Made getting the dog a bit useless. But Billy Connolly is, and hopefully, I don't know, we'll see if I can get that across. Billy Connolly was born in Glasgow in the mid-1940s, like I said, in an area called Anderson, which is not yet time to start committing crimes, I don't think. Which is, or was then, I think, quite a rough area with tenements, full of tenements, which is basically a way of saying sort of quite dense, not very pleasant, I suppose, council housing. He was born into a very working class family, as my parents were back then, and I don't know if everyone's parents of that generation have the same story. I imagine many don't, but when I was young, my parents certainly used to like to tell me how they had no running water in their house, and how they had multiple siblings to a bedroom, and how if you wanted to go to the toilet, you went to the outhouse outside the house. Which all might sound a bit Wild West, but that's actually quite normal for some people in the 1940s. Still hate scorpions, just a little news update there. There's the chest, good, okay. And Billy Connolly also lived in that kind of very, very working class environment. He was brought up by his dad and I think his two aunts, who are apparently not very pleasant people, and so for a number of reasons he had a difficult upbringing. His aunts were not very nice. His background was also quite staunchly, strictly Catholic, which he's now very turned off by, But apparently one of his earliest memories is of going to a Catholic school, and I think a teacher or a nun pointing out a crucifix, and her way of saying Jesus died for your sins was to say, that's Jesus, he's dead, it's your fault. That's pretty much his first memory of school, I think. And I think he had in some way a difficult time at school because people were so strict and not very pleasant to him. His aunts were not very pleasant people to have raise him, and the very sad thing was, I think for a number of years while he was a young boy or an older boy, he was abused by his father, and I think physically and sexually. And that sort of thing is something that might never come out, and that you might not necessarily have to ever talk about or raise. And I find it interesting and actually quite encouraging that that comes up in Billy Connolly's biography, which is written by his wife, who's Pamela Stevenson, who's both a psychologist and a comic, and apparently a very clever person. Don't really want a knife, I don't find them that useful, but okay. That was a waste of a couple of bombs. They are good for chopping webs, which is something, I suppose. Can I do that? I probably can. Oh dear, there are too many spiders. That wasn't supposed to happen. Probably in a lot of trouble now, actually. Lovely. It's a topic that comes up in his biography, written by his wife, and it didn't have to come up, and they didn't have to put it in there. They could have glossed over it or ignored it, or just decided that's one aspect they didn't want to share. But they did. And there's also an interview with a TV or radio station or something called Q, which is on YouTube, which I will pop a link to in the description to this video, where he talks about this a bit more. And this is a thing that I immediately find quite inspiring about him, is clearly there are elements of his being a kid that he found very unpleasant and very difficult, and he's decided to talk about those and be frank about them rather than not. And some people would be very embarrassed to say those things for understandable reasons, but he talks about how he's felt that he's been able to deal with it. Do I want to use a bomb to get the dog? Can I use a bomb to get the dog? Let's save a bomb. I'm feeling a bit conservative today, and that actually doesn't really suit me, but we'll see how this goes. I feel like this game hasn't really got going yet. But I definitely watch that interview, I would say. I think it's interesting, and I think actually very touching, the attitude he has to what he had to go through and what his reflections on it are now. And it would seem that ooh, double kill, bonus XP, that will eventually unlock more items or something. Don't really, okay, the thing about unlocking, I'll just get one. The thing about the idol is, I swear that sometimes it does more than $5,000 worth of damage on the 9 levels, which actually makes it a bad idea, so let's just run over some gold there. Oh, don't run into the altar, please. Okay, that's fine. So I don't know if the idol is necessarily always a good idea, especially when it's near the top of a level. Oops. I've completely lost my thread, I'm so sorry. Where was I? Yes! And yeah, to be able to talk frankly about something can also be remarkably good for other people. And I believe other people have... He certainly tells a story of how someone else came up to him in the street and also gave him, I suppose, something of the courage to talk about the same issues of abuse as a child. And that's quite powerful, because obviously there are many people who, when they're affected by these things, are affected by them forever, sadly, and may never talk about them, or may never perhaps find a way to resolve them. And I immediately find that quite an inspiring thing about Billy Connolly, the way he talks about this quite frankly, and doesn't feel embarrassed or scared by it. And that, I don't know, that wins points with me. And that immediately, that might perhaps contradict the kind of image you have of him. You might think he's just a mouthy comedian who is very liberal with his language on stage, which he is. And more so than he used to be. I think a lot of the favourite Billy Connolly stuff that I grew up with and that I adored was actually from the 70s era, where he wasn't able to do that quite as much, or it didn't happen quite as often. Although I still do like him now, and I still do find him very interesting. I think perhaps it's some of his older stuff that has made me laugh more. I should tell you how I even came across Billy Connolly, which is, I think when I was about 13, I got a hi-fi music system. Do you remember those? Do people still have those? I don't even know what people do nowadays because, you know, the internet and Spotify and everything. But, oh, my detector's gone off. And I've got one bomb. It's going to make life difficult for getting money and winning. I had one of the hi-fi music system things. Oh, two. I feel like I'm metal detecting. You've got to excuse my silence. I'm actually concentrating really hard on trying to work out where the secret door might be. It's got to be above the main door. In which case I really need more bombs if I'm going to get to it, and I might not. But yes, I could play the new compact discs that were around, and also I could play... I'm never going to get that in time. Oh, I just dried him out. Oh, blast. I could play LP records, I could play vinyl things. And that actually excited me more because there were loads in my house. There were loads of LPs in my house that had belonged to my parents and my sisters from times long before I was born. So it was a little bit like doing music archaeology, that these things just are in your house and I couldn't use them for a long time, and now I could. And there was an interesting selection of stuff there, and some of it was not so great and some was. And there were some, what are, I think now fairly well known Billy Connolly LPs. I'm never going to find this. So I'm out of here. I'm never going to find it. I'm just going to waste bombs trying to get it. What a pain. There were some Billy Connolly LPs. And what they were a collection of some of his stand-up and some of his folk music. And what Billy Connolly had originally done was being a folk musician in a band called the Humble Bums in the 60s with another musician called Jerry Rafferty. And the Humble Bums didn't really do all that well, although their music's quite nice. Nothing ever really took off for them. And Jerry Rafferty later became really successful as a solo artist. I want to get to the crate, but that's not a thing that I can do right now, really. What a pain. This is a horrible playthrough. Just things are happening to me that are making me unhappy. Like, I want to get that shotgun, but I have one bomb. Oh, that was close, wasn't it? Nearly got you stabbed, Mr. Dog. But there was a mixture of his stand-up and some of his music with Jerry Rafferty, who went off to become actually a really successful solo artist. Jerry Rafferty had a couple of big hits, and the main one that everyone knows is Baker Street, which had the really distinctive saxophone riff that wasn't played by Bob Monkhouse, even though everyone says it wasn't. And Bob Monkhouse also wasn't the person making Elvis Presley laugh during the performance of Your Lonesome. It wasn't him Anyway, I'm totally going off topic. These are all things you should look up on the internet because they're all interesting. They're all much more interesting than me. So if you have time to watch this video, you have time to look at that other stuff. Anyway, so those Billy Connolly LPs appeared at some point in my bedroom, and I listened to them, and thought they were very interesting. I'm doing some arithmetic in my head. Can I go back and get the shotgun and then commit a crime? Because that would get me more bombs. I possibly can. Really running out of time now. If I bomb there, that's good, because I give myself another way of getting around the level. Right, okay, let's do this. Let's make this happen. Let's get rid of you, and let's do a crime. A crime has occurred. Hello. Yep. Don't need the thing anymore. And I very much liked listening to the stand-up bits on his record, and quite like listening to some of the music bits too, I suppose. How am I doing this? Am I going to activate a second ghost? Because that'd be funny. Oh, that's ridiculous. I mean, that's just cheating. That's just the game cheating. Don't want to get the crown, don't have time to drop bombs in places. I've left a gun down here, haven't I? Yes, lovely. Okay, goodbye. 2 ghosts. What is with that? That's just unfair. And there was something about his storytelling that immediately appealed to me, and I don't know if you know Billy Connolly very well, but his thing as a stand-up is elaborate stories and digressions. No, I don't want to. I just don't. Oh, for heaven's sake. Oh, and oh. All right, hang on. So how am I going to do this? If, oh no, because of the gloves, right? What a stupid game, because I only have 1 pair of hands. Yeah, I'm sorry that you're dead, but you're kind of the most useless concept in the game. Yeah, okay, that's a thing, that you're not quick enough to jump up the thing either. I'm getting really ornery, as you can probably tell. Billy Connolly, those were good, and I wanted to find some more examples of his stand-up. And it wasn't necessarily all that risque compared to other stuff I was listening to. It just felt more surprising, and the digressions were more interesting. And I think as well there was a lot that I related to in my upbringing, and here's probably an important thing about Billy Connolly as well. A lot of the stuff that was getting really popular around the time that I was young was stuff done by lots of Oxbridge comedians. Lots of comedy has always come out of Oxford and Cambridge, whether that's more modern stuff like you know, the Peep Show guys, or older things like not the 9 o'clock news and Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie. And the backgrounds of all these people are related. And Billy Connolly wasn't of that background. He was of a working class. I don't even know what I'm doing. What am I doing? How am I gonna... Why are there so many tiki traps? Why is this even happening? I don't understand... Why has this happened? This is just horror. I hate tiki. I hate everything in the game. I hate this man. No witnesses. He's dead. But yeah, just the concept that there's actual working class people making jokes about stuff was welcoming to me. Oh no, because the way that I'd been brought up, and obviously the parents I'd been brought up by, we spent a long time, I guess, trying to be middle class, and I thought I was middle class until I went to friends' houses where they had more than 1 bathroom, or their parents had been to university, and I couldn't fathom those concepts. And Billy Connolly described a life and a background and people in his stories, in his comedy, that otherwise, you know, people didn't talk about, because poor people don't talk about, that poor people are not given platforms to talk about themselves nearly as often. Or if they are, they're preaching to kind of the converted. They have their own audiences of other working class, poorer people. And Billy Connolly seemed to have got past that, or come out of that bubble, and was speaking to everybody. And I suddenly realised, I think I started to realise I was relating to this more than I was many other things. There's a lot more, I don't know, that I could tie into my own upbringing and background, but we're out of time because the whole playthrough was stupid, and the levels were stupid, and everything was too difficult, and it was completely unfair, and there was no way to find the market, and there wasn't enough stuff, and this was a crap daily. And frankly, I don't know how 265 people did better without hacking or cheating or bribing or manipulating the game in unfair ways. And really, I should be at number one. So definitely look up Billy Connolly and look up his history of doing other interesting stuff, like being in the paratroopers. Never got to talk about that. I might go and have a bit of toast. Bye.